Hello, Instagram, hello. When a man lives in his wife's house, or when he's underperforming in terms of what society expects a man to do, these include things like men who don't pay school fees, or failure to do basic things or provide basic things for his family. Usually, a man who is unable to provide leadership for his home will be disrespected by his wife. And if she's able to provide for the home better than he, she will not respect him. Once she does not respect him, issues of abuse will come. There'll be sexual abuse because she will not even consider that he's doing anything in that realm. There'll also be physical abuse. There'll be the occasional slap or the occasional back slap or the occasional face slap of the man because she feels that he's not doing things properly. Now, can you imagine when such a man is now cheating against his wife? In fact, he'll be having it so bad that society will actually be sorry for him. How does the woman abuse her husband? Of course, there's the physical violence that we all know, as in the wife could actually be bigger in terms of size. It could actually be a weakling of a husband that she has, and so she can take advantage of him and actually beat him up. Also, there can be physical abuse of a man when he is impaired. Like when a man is asleep, for instance, the wife could come and attack him in the bed. There was a story that I know many years ago of a man who his wife used to wait for him to sleep at night, and she would make fresh eba. For those of you who don't know what eba is, it's some kind of Nigerian food that is made very hot, and she would actually slap it on his backside, and so he would have to get up, of course, and because he was a medical doctor, he would then treat whatever it is that the wounds he gets from it. And many people didn't know that was what was happening to him, because a lot of the times he would cover it up. He was also a medical doctor, so he was able to cover it up. But men do get beaten by their wives, and technically, when that kind of thing happens, a man ought to leave the house for his wife, because it then becomes a crime scene that she has caused him some grievous bodily harm. It becomes a crime scene, and it's a crime scene that, and in every crime scene, that the police kind of take over. I believe, and I as you all know, I do not suffer domestic violence of any kind. And I believe that this moment there is domestic violence or physical violence between a couple, one should leave the house for the other. In this case, since we're talking about domestic violence against men, I think that the man ought to leave the house for the woman, so that there will be the domestic violence against him would be minimized. Of course, it's important that you also get a report at the hospital. You also attend hospital, get a report, because you need to start to create your own evidence of the domestic violence that is happening. So this evening, men, I am talking to you about domestic violence against your person, and more to you men than to the women. We've lost the Facebook. Okay. Thank you. So now, I'm talking to men more than the women this evening. There's also emotional violence, and a lot of women have been said to be guilty of this. They put down their men in their sexual activity. They taunt them about things that they're not able to do physically, especially when it comes to issues of emotions, especially when it comes to issues of sex. They castigate them in the presence of their friends. They disgrace them at work. I know that there's some women who go to disgrace their husbands at work. All these are incidences of emotional violence. Some women use the the children to harass their husbands, especially when there's a standoff between them. They send the children to them, go and tell that your stupid father. This is actually emotional violence against the man, and I know that a lot of women are guilty of that. Of course, there's also the sexual violence, which is the refusal to have sex with your husband as a punishment because he has done something wrong. Women use sex and they say they won't sleep with him. And when they do, I also know that there's another group of women who, when they are sleeping with their husbands, they're actually doing something else. I once had a friend who told me, and I thought, obviously she didn't know it was wrong, that when she became born again, she would make love to her husband. She would read the Bible whilst her husband was making love to her. I thought it was the most stupid thing to tell me. It was the most stupid thing for any person to be doing. Thank you for Mr. Lunge, and thank you, Lanre Abudu, for joining on Instagram. And then, of course, we women are very, 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 very adept at verbal violence. We like to taunt our men. We like to actually verbally abuse them and tell them sometimes how useless we think they are. We disgrace them in front of their peers. We report them to their peers. We tell lies against them to their peers. We nag them, and we just generally make life difficult for them. And it's very, very difficult for men to take this. Women, generally speaking, when this kind of thing happens, we go and we cry on the shoulders of other women. But unfortunately, men cannot report domestic violence, or they do not feel that they can report domestic violence, because amongst their peers, it undermines their manliness. Their men are taught that men do not cry. And when men do not cry, they bottle up everything in their system or in their hearts. And it actually then leads to they retaliating and becoming violent against we women. So am I saying that women cause the violence that they get from their men? Yes, I'm saying so. I'm saying so that a lot of the time when we have the men who are violent against their wives, the root cause is usually because the woman too has been violent against her husband in one way or the other. And then you ask yourself, how does that equate into a happy home or lead to a happy marriage? Now, of course, a man will not tell his friends or his peers that his wife is being violent towards him, or is being emotionally or physically violent towards him, because his peers will belittle him. They will think very little of him. They will think that he's not the leader of his home. Every man wants to feel that he's the leader of his home, and so it's seen as a sign of weakness. And even when the marriage then breaks up and he has a new relationship, you'll find people who will say even to the new woman that, oh, that man, he can't lead his home, why are you with him? And so emotional and physical violence of a man goes way beyond even the marriage. Even at the end of the marriage, he cannot really establish very healthy relationships any longer, because he is jeered at by his friends, he's jeered at by people who know him and who know his story. So generally speaking, who do men report to? When a man is when there's violence in a man's home and it's the wife who's being violent, many men tend to report to members of their family, not because they want anybody to actually come to intervene in the violence or in the issues at home, but because they want to sound a warning bell to their members of their family, so that if in future the marriage breaks up, then at least the members of their family are not urging them to go back or to forgive the woman. So really, by the time a man is reporting domestic violence to his family, he's on his way out of that marriage. What are the effects of domestic violence, and why do we really think that as women we need to be violent towards our husbands? It actually leads to low productivity at work. So it becomes like a vicious cycle. You're saying that the man cannot provide because he's not doing work well, and yet because we are being violent towards them. They're not able to perform well at work. So it becomes a vicious cycle, and the man still cannot provide. So the root cause is still there because we are violent to them. They are not able to provide, and so the cycle continues like that. They are ostracized in their social circles. Their friends laugh at them. Their friends think very little about them. They have low self-esteem. They have a desire to please somebody, so invariably they are tossed around by you and by their friends, and they become like a ping pong ball between their wife and other members of their another relationships that they have. And of course, they lack self-confidence. They're not able to lead their home. They become diminished in their confidence, and it leads to bad investments for them. Generally speaking, when a man is abused like that, he then becomes unfaithful to his wife. It leads to infidelity, because then he needs somebody who he needs to validate him. Somebody needs to be there to validate him, and so he leads into infidelity because the wife does not regard him much. What is the solution to domestic violence against men? First of all, there needs to be a lot of counseling of the men or of the couple, so that you know what the root cause is. If a man goes to counseling and his wife does not go with him, really, the root cause is probably will never be attended to, and so, like I said, it becomes a vicious cycle, and it just continues like that. The other thing that I would actually say, if you ask me, is that the man should actually go for divorce coaching. What do I mean by divorce coaching? I don't mean he should divorce. I think that just like a woman too, if you are in a violent relationship, you are a good candidate for divorce coaching, because in divorce coaching, you are actually going and speaking to a divorce coach who is telling you what the other side looks like, or who is leading you to understand what the other side looks like. If you are in a violent marriage, you are not in a marriage. So if you need to exit the marriage, it's good for you to start to learn what it is or what you need to plan to be able to move out. You need to go to divorce coaching. You need to talk about your finances. You need to talk about where you will live. You need to talk about your emotional challenges if you get divorced, because not everybody will get divorced. Even after divorce coaching, some people may then decide that they are prepared to make amends in their marriage. They're prepared to look for ways to sort out the issues in their marriage. Divorce coaching is not necessarily does not equate to divorce, and we all need to start to get some level of divorce coaching so that we can learn about issues of domestic violence, issues of custody of children, issues of when we are separated from one person or the other. But tonight we're talking about domestic violence against the men. As I've said, if we continue to violate our men, we have nothing left of them. And if they're not able to be the men that we want them to be, then really we're not in a marriage. Thank you very much for joining me. Do I have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Alunge, Charles Alunge. Thank you, Lan Diabudu. Thank you very much. Thank you, ZCGC Daba. And thank you, Chinedu. Thank you, Dima Be Good Events NG. Thank you, Mrs. Tolu Akikoye. Thanks for attending this. If I don't have any questions, I'll finish now. Thank you.